for our small business Tuesday Talk. Thanks to COVID-19, we've all had to ensure the safety of ourselves, our employees, and most importantly, our clients. Just like you, we're wondering when we can get back to business as usual. Between restaurants operating at reduced capacity and sports, the sports sector has all but been canceled. We start to navigate our way back to some sort of normalcy, and that typically centers around food and eating. So today, our next guest has some interesting views on how Atlanta can come back from this, and I'm super stoked to say that we've got the famous Steak Shapiro joining us today. I'm very, very happy about that. He's going to be amazing. He's known to thousands of Atlantas for his love of sports, building the popular 790 The Zone, in which he served as president and morning talent. He's since moved over to 680 The Fan, and he's also highlighted Atlanta's restaurant scene, most importantly, by hosting the Atlanta Eats on Peachtree TV. Steak has also started Bread and Butter, LLC, which creates marketing content for national and local companies, as well as connecting businesses to consumers. Look, I think Steak's conversation today is going to be really informative and interesting. He shared with me some data. I won't steal his thunder, but maybe a little bit. Atlanta is the #1 dining out city in the country. I mean, let that sink in for a second. I mean, we eat out more than anyone else in the country. That's pretty impressive. And just as a hat tip to Steak, he's got the #1 digital site for dining. So you should check out his site at some point. Today's live conversation is going to be just that. Steak will be chatting with our Assistant Director of Business Retention and Expansion, Sabrina Young-Wright. If you have any questions or comments for Steak, feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end of the show. And today, really interesting, we're venturing out. We're going to be on our Instagram. We're Instagramming this now. And we're also doing Facebook Live. So if you want to check us out on Instagram, go to Invest Atlanta to see that. And look, I think Steak is going to have some really good information about what we expect to see in the restaurant industry in Atlanta. I know we're all concerned about it, but I think his information that he's going to give you will help us all breathe a sigh of collective relief that we're going to get through this together. And so without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Steak and Sabrina, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. I'm Sabrina Young-Wright, Assistant Director of Business Retention Expansion at Invest Atlanta. This morning we are broadcasting simultaneously on Facebook and Instagram for the first time. So thank you all for joining us. And we're speaking with Steak Shapiro of Atlanta Eats. Steak, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Great to be here. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much. So Nathan gave us a little bit of a background about you, but for those who just joined in, can you tell us a little bit more about you and Atlanta Eats, please?
Yeah, so I've been in Atlanta 25 years. I'm the longest running talk show host in the city. I've been doing sports talk radio. Used to own a sports talk radio station, 790 The Zone. I do mornings at 680 The Fan. I moved here to work for those guys, left for 17 years and came back, was their big competitor. So I've been doing mornings there for a long time. Sold my other media company, Big League Broadcasting, started a new media business called Bread and Butter. And our first project was to create the #1 food and dining show in America, Atlanta Eats, highlighting the amazing stories of what a vibrant, amazing food and restaurant city that we are. And we've really become a lifestyle brand around food and travel and dining and promoting Atlanta, right? So Atlanta's given me the most amazing opportunities in media, owning a couple of businesses. And I always felt that Atlanta as a dining out and going out city was second to none. And that's kind of how we built our media company around this brand called Atlanta Eats, and Bread and Butter, which is our content studio creating original content. A lot of it around Atlanta.
That's awesome. So what made you fall in love with Atlanta? Why Atlanta? You could be anywhere else in the country. So why did you choose to stay here in Atlanta?
So I went to school in the South. I went to school in New Orleans, grew up in the Northeast. And I was like, wow, people are really nicer down south. I like to talk to people like in the elevator and smile at them. If you do that up in Boston too often, they may call the authorities on you. Uh, so I like the energy. My dream was to be a sports talk radio host since I was a little kid. Truth be told, I did one of those things where I sent out resumes to every major market, and Atlanta's the first one that called and brought me down here. I'd never spent one day in the city, and I auditioned for a job on the radio. I got the gig. I moved here a day later, and I've been here for 25 years and never left. And like a lot of transplants, Atlanta's been the land of opportunity. I've been able to be an entrepreneur. I've been able to own businesses. I've been able to be embedded in the community, radio, television, print, business, all kinds of, folks within the community have been, it's just the greatest place to build a career. And I love the weather. I love the people. I love the culture. I love to eat. And I love, the opportunities I've had here. I don't think we could have had anywhere else, where you can really, build something in a market that is a market of 7 million people. This is not, it's not like you have to go away to Greenville to be able to build a career, or nothing against Greenville or Knoxville or whatever. Atlanta is a mecca. And to be able to do these things in a place like Atlanta is fantastic.
Yes, and we're happy to have you here in the city. We love it that you're here. I mean, you're such a Renaissance man here in Atlanta and just all over. Talk to us a little bit about your career in sports radio and how you became a food media mogul.
Well, I mean, I figured two things I was good at. I like to talk about sports and I like to eat. So I tell my kids, first of all, my kids are like, that's not a business, Dad. You can't get paid. You can't get paid to eat out at restaurants and talk about sports. That's not right. And I said, listen, if you can, find a way to, work your way into the passions of your life. So, in all honesty, um, I grew up, my family, like a lot of families, food and dining, whether it's, Jewish family where we're going out and food and dining and being around family was a huge part of my life. You see that with Italian families, African American families, Latino. The culture of food and dining
Yes.
is what brings communities together, right? So my greatest memories growing up are being with my family or my buddies, or around a table at a restaurant, or on a Sunday night dinner, or getting just everything about just the process of going out to eat and all that. And then from a sports perspective, listen, I've always been fascinated. Sports is the greatest reality series of all time. Before there was reality shows, right? Every day is a
Absolutely.
different. Every day is a different drama. There's no 2 days are the same. Um, I was a loquacious youth. I was kind of a wise guy and a big personality, and thought that there was nothing. When I first found out you could make a living being a sports talk radio host, I thought that's going to be the greatest career ever. I never thought I'd be a business owner, but it turns out, I figured out how to start a radio station in Atlanta with the first sports talk station, raise money, create a business plan, hire people, serve as as a program director and a marketing director and an on-air talent. I do the same thing in Atlanta Eats. I'm the most affordable host at Atlanta Eats, so I had to hire myself. But it's really just having a passion for being an entrepreneur and trying to dream big. Never thought I'd be on the Food Network. I had 2 series on the Food Network. I never thought I'd be on CNN and ESPN and have regular gigs on national networks. But I always had a lot of drive, a lot of passion. And again, if you get to do stuff that you love, it's not working. So when you spend 17 hours a day talking about food and sports and meeting folks all over Atlanta, that doesn't feel like work. But the key is that Atlanta's just given me that great opportunity. So I love talking about food and I love talking about sports and I love building careers around them.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like you just mentioned, all these different families and all the great memories you can make around the table, around food, and that's my favorite thing about family as well.
I
Just
haven't
being
met
there and enjoying food.
I haven't met anybody that doesn't have vivid storytelling about what food was in their life growing up. you know, and that could be
Right.
the family reunions. That could be the sweet potato casserole that their grandmother used to make them. You know, that could be going to, you know, I don't know, Chops as a little kid. The first time you walk into a fancy restaurant, could be going to OK Cafe. It could be
Yep.
barbecue out in your backyard and learning how to do that with somebody in your family. And sports is the same way. Your dad taking you to the old Fulton County Stadium to watch the Falcons and the Braves. You know, a lot of folks were here when the Falcons came to town. Look at what Atlanta United has done to United City. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they're both huge, huge parts of the community. I mean, look at the loss we have felt with the coronavirus over two things: sports and restaurant and dining, right? The hospitality industry and the sports industry, those aren't like people are like, oh, you know, we realize that sports is not as important in you know, food. And I was like, I think it's the opposite. I think people are realizing how much a part of their lives both those things are. Now
Yes.
they're not more important than being healthy, but they're pretty close to being a real core of how you build a community.
Exactly. I mean, that's just those comforts of life that we take for granted and that we
We
don't
miss,
realize how much they're affecting our lives until they're taken away right now.
yeah, we miss
And
it.
speaking of that, talk about how has this COVID-19 pandemic affected your business and the restaurant industry as a whole?
Well, I mean, I own a small business. We have 14 employees. We're essentially a media company. So our advertisers are how we pay our bills. Great companies like Gas South and Georgia Lottery and, you know, core businesses that, you know, advertise across media, um, and have been rooted in Georgia. So if they're in pain, then that affects marketing dollars. We've been very lucky to maintain all our partners and, you know, Butler Lexus and Central Heating and Air and Kaiser Permanente and all these companies we work hard for. But I mean, anytime media is down, the media spend, look in radio and television across the
Mhm.
board. I mean, 50% of media dollars have been cut or more. So we had to figure out also content wise, we cover restaurants. Like our storytelling is where to go eat. The number one thing we do is tell you where to eat. Well, if you can't go out to eat, we had to figure out we can't just keep hammering people with stories about where to dine. So we
Right.
pivoted to, first of all, purpose driven content. How do we help those with food insecurity? What is the Giving Kitchen doing? Um, the um, the great initiatives of helping folks that are trying to take care of the hospitality industry. And then restaurants, we're there for restaurants, takeout, carry out, pop-ups. How are these restaurants surviving? Telling those stories. So we pivoted our content, cooking at home. You know, the Atlanta Eats brand is not about um, just dining out of restaurants. It's about people that love food and love travel and love that lifestyle. So cooking at home segments, takeout, carry out segments, the Giving Kitchen and the the food shelters and places, Atlanta Community Food Bank. So that became a lot of
Mhm.
our content. And then we had to get a PPP loan. We had to figure out how to handle, you know, reducing people's income because our income was getting devastated. And on the radio side, it's the exact same way. You know, I work in one case, I'm an employee at 680 The Fan for David Dickey, who's done an amazing job in the city as the owner of Dickey Broadcasting. So as an employee, I saw what the realities are.
Mhm.
And then as a business owner, and it's pain across the board. You know, it's restaurants are in peril. You're talking about, you know, restaurants live on razor thin margins, and you have service staff that if they have a down 3 days are affected. You know, if there's bad weather,
Right.
if there's Saturday nights off, and then you're talking about 3 months of no income, 2.5 months for folks living
Yeah,
paycheck to
exactly.
paycheck. So the hospitality industry had to figure out like um, whether to furlough folks or where how do you get folks in unemployment? Does it make more sense to be able to try to keep paying them, or just shut everything down? Do you stay open and do curbside, or do you shut down your whole operation and just try to kill all your expenses, rent, food cost, employees? When do you reopen? When is it safe? When is it viable? You know, if you're in a like local neighborhood, that's great because the community will support you. But I have a lot of friends that run restaurants downtown. The downtown community is conventions and concerts and sporting events. They don't have all these little, neighborhoods that are going to running to downtown restaurants. So everybody had to look at their business in media and in restaurants and figure out, um, how do we pivot and how do we do it in a smart way and how do we save our business because we know what's happening with unemployment in small business. It's devastating.
Right, right. And speaking of those businesses having to pivot, because businesses are definitely have to do that.
So I'm
What's
losing.
the grateful?
Yeah, I'm losing a little bit of the connection. Are you asked? Yeah, you're coming in. Sorry, do you want to ask me that again? I apologize.
Yeah, I'm asking you to just describe some of the things that you've seen restaurants do creatively to pivot during this COVID
Yeah.
pandemic.
Well, listen, curbside takeout, carry out is obviously critical. You know, uh, Grubhub and Uber Eats and those Postmates, that's revenue, but you're giving up huge margins. The best thing that could happen is folks consistently come and you figure out how to shorten your menu, how to develop an infrastructure to serve people from a takeout, how many employees to have, how to do it with great quality, then how to serve bottles of wine where you can make some money. Because listen, alcohol sales are the margins. That's the dream scenario for margins. So I'm seeing Mexican restaurants with huge pitchers of margaritas. I may or may not have had a few of those over the last few weeks, right? Everybody's probably drinking a little more tequila if they're prone to that.
Right.
Then you're watching these general stores where restaurants that have access to folks like Cisco and other folks are literally selling food, like selling fillets right out of their store, selling bottles of wine, selling toilet paper, becoming a general store type location just to be able to create revenue. Like folks want to take care of neighborhood restaurants. They make up the core of their communities. You just had to give them a reason to be able to utilize them. So folks just getting really creative about shortening their menu, having great offerings, making the product quality, figuring out what food travels the best, selling alcohol sales on the street, raising money for their employees through funds, all those type of things I've watched take place over
Yeah.
the last 6 weeks.
And those are awesome things. I think I lost you on our Instagram feed.
Yes. You want me to try to get back to it?
Yeah, if you could try to join us back
All
on
right.
Instagram, that'd be
So
awesome too.
this is how you
Um,
pivot. Here we go.
it's how you pivot exactly. But we'll continue with that. One thing, hold on. I
Yeah, go
think
ahead.
I see that. Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna get you back here on Instagram live. So I know you mentioned one thing was about, curbside pickup, and
Yeah.
we've also known that some of the restaurants are doing count, contactless service. Can you describe how some of those things are working, and what do you think some things that may continue outside of the COVID once this is passed? What are some of the things that may stick around?
Yeah. So contactless makes a ton of sense, right? So gloves, masks, pop the back of your trunk. Guys out front, you never actually have contact with them. They put the bag in the back of your trunk. I don't think that folks. There's no proof that you can get corona from a bag. I know there are rumors about that in the Northeast. They wipe down their bags and everything else. I have, truth be
Yeah.
told, if somebody with a mask and gloves is popping a bag of food in my trunk and I'm just taking the containers out, I think that's about as safe as it gets. So you pay over the
Hmm.
phone and credit card. You have an efficient manner, which you pull up. In some cases, it's just a tablet. They have your name down. It's not just like Open Table or something like that. Listen, the margins are good on that business. I mean, you save a lot of overhead. You save labor. there's efficiency. You can serve a lot more people. And ideally, let's be honest, if under these restrictions, which we understand them, if your dining room is set and your business model is for 80 tables and you can only open 50 tables, you need to make up that revenue. You can't be off 60% and think that business is viable. So takeout and carry out really becomes a key to survival. I think a lot of folks will start thinking about these ghost kitchens. Do you know what a ghost kitchen is essentially?
Mhm.
Which is there's a
No,
brand.
let's describe that. What is that? A ghost kitchen?
So you could have a kitchen, a satellite kitchen that could hold three brands: Bob's Delicious Burgers, Sally's Southern Delights, and uh, Jimmy Clement's Barbecue. Essentially, all come out of the same kitchen, and all making great recipes. But there's no brick and mortar restaurant, so they are essentially delivering or doing carry out. You build a brand out, you do great recipes, you do great quality food, but you don't have to build a brick and mortar location, um, where it has countless expenses attached to it. So that's not great for hiring staff, but it's certainly great in building a restaurant or a food brand, because now you just market these different forms of, and or it's just one satellite kitchen serving amazing great food. Folks are getting comfortable eating at home. They're getting comfortable with takeout and carry out, and restaurateurs who are nervous about entering the business now have much less risk. They don't have a brick and mortar restaurant. They have a commissary, and they create beautiful brands with great food, and there's a lot less risk involved. So you may see more of that business moving forward, because it's expensive to open restaurants and the margins are
Right.
razor thin. Good news about Atlanta: we love to go out to eat, and we love,
Yes.
we are the number one dining out city in the country in terms of we have the least amount of dollars spent, um, least amount of cooking at home. And if you know me and my wife, we absolutely add to those percentages, right? Because I
And
can
so
tell.
does my sister. She's the same way. You know what? Because people are spending a lot of money, just dining, doing this contactless service, curbside pickup. Do you think we'll ever return to full service dining like we did pre-COVID? Do you think there's an opportunity for that and how that may look?
I think that absolutely there's an opportunity. You can't have that opportunity when you only have a certain amount of tables available. But now you can sit 10 at a table. That helps. People love going out to eat. They love to be served, right? They love the experience
Right.
of sitting around a table after work and getting a drink, meeting their whole family at a Mexican joint to drink margaritas and queso and chips on a Friday night, right? Bobby's coming from football
Yep.
practice, and your daughter's coming from soccer, and mom's had a long day, and everybody meets at their local Mexican place. People love that. That is not going anywhere. The fear factor is getting shorter every day. Maybe, listen, if you were at Avalon this weekend, Washington Post just wrote an article about Avalon. It was bananas up there, right? Maybe too many people out. But folks want to be served. They love delicious food. If When the economy is booming, restaurants are booming, because that's where you want to spend your money. That's a luxury, to be able to have people serve you. So absolutely, it'll go back to pre-COVID days. It's just there'll be less restaurants, but the restaurants that do a great job will be hugely successful. So it's really a matter of how much disposable income we have in our pocket.
What do you think are the what do you think is the best criteria for determining which restaurants will survive this pandemic?
Well, history, obviously, and loyalty. So the restaurants that are super successful, it's about recurring revenue. So it's the tavern up the road from you in Woodstock, or the Buckhead Life restaurant groups that have a history that you've been going to for years, or it's the barbecue place that has always done great in terms of value, right? So great operators, just like businesses. If you're a great operator, you understand value, you understand quality, you respect your customers, then if you were like that prior, then afterward you'll be fine. If you were a restaurant that was hot and cold, that, well, because we go out to eat so much, we'll try this place, but we don't love it as much as others. If you didn't have great wait staff and your food quality was mediocre, or every other time, you'd have a mediocre
Mhm.
experience, then you're in trouble. I know I don't want to name restaurant groups, but there's some restaurant groups that have 12 or 14 restaurants that 2 or 3 of them weren't performing at the same level, and those 2 or 3 are gone. And there are others that were staples of neighborhoods, right? I will name, like, Marlowe's Tavern, great example. My buddy John Metz, who owns Marlowe's, he's got this great multi-unit restaurant that is embedded in all kinds of every community that he's an executive chef. He understands how to run business. All his stores are going to reopen. Buckhead Life Restaurants groups are reopening. The South City Kitchens and Fifth Group restaurants that have Echo and South City Kitchen and La Tahoe,
Mhm.
you know, they understand how to run great restaurants. They're a phenomenal group. They also have capital behind them, right? So you worry
Right.
about the local owner. The good news is Atlanta reopened quicker. If you're a local restaurant owner in New York or Philly or Boston, I mean, Atlanta reopened a little bit quicker, and already you're starting, as long as there's revenue coming in. Now, pre-COVID days, you could ask a million businesses when they're going to get back to that. I mean, I have no idea about that, but you can still make money. And if you run a great business, right? It's all about the general manager, quality of the food, those two things. You have a great GM, means you got great servers, you mean you got a clean restaurant, and you treat customers well. And if you have great recipes, because we all love delicious food, if you have those two things, you're going to be fine, right?
Right, right. I totally agree. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
There are a number of initiatives that you champion as a result of COVID, and one of them is Georgia Alive. Can you tell us about Georgia
Georgia
Alive and your work with
Alive. Yeah, so
it?
Georgia Alive. So I got approached by some folks, this great organization that was a bunch of parents where my kids go to school that wanted to be there to build. There's a lot of, much more important people than I involved in this thing. They just, I just had the loudest voice, and I literally have the loudest voice. I just talk loud. So Georgia Live started, and by the way, go to at Georgia Live or hashtag Georgia Live to learn more about it. Initially, it was about telling folks to stay home and be smart and get us in the position to get the curve flattened. So it went from a curve flattening initiative now to it's a be smart and build the economy back initiative. So it's everything about how do we build back the Georgia economy? How do we make smart decisions to go back to work and do it in a responsible way?
Yeah.
And Georgia Live, it's everybody from Kirby Smart's been involved to, Rabbi Peter Berg at the temple where I go, who's just a huge leader in the religious community, to corporate leaders. So Georgia Live's done a phenomenal job. It's like, let's just all rally together. I think Georgia's going to come back faster than almost every other state. I think our city of Atlanta is going to come back faster.
That's good to hear, especially coming from
Well,
you.
we had so much more going for us. We got all these Fortune 500 companies. We got all these great restaurant groups. We got great, core bones before it all happened. I mean, our
Yeah.
economy, our economy was on fire. The unemployment numbers were a record low. I hate the unemployment numbers in Atlanta. You know why they're there in Georgia, between Delta and Home Depot and all these other Fortune 500 companies. And then you add the hospitality industry, which dominated. So our
Right.
numbers are really high. But when those big companies get back to work, the money's going to filter right back to the restaurants. And we're open faster. Agree with it or not, we're open faster. I think we're going to come back much faster than everybody else.
That's awesome. So we have time for one last question, and we are right now. The purpose of these talks is just to find out how businesses are transitioning, pivoting during this time, and from you, based on your expertise and all of the work that you've done, what advice do you have for other businesses as just a good way that they can come out of this pandemic or just remain sustainable, whether it be restaurants or media or any type of other industry?
So it's a great opportunity to really take a full scale checkup of your business. How efficient were you? Did you have the right people in the right seats? Who are team players? Who has passion? Who can you win with going forward? And everybody's had to learn how to do more with less. I think a bunch of businesses now are operating more efficiently by remote. They may decide they don't need as much real estate. They may realize our real opportunity for growth is not where we thought it was. I think our company, Atlanta Eats and Bread and Butter LLC, we're going to be so much more efficient coming out of this and not waste time on areas that just aren't going to, now it's bottom line business. We need to do smart things. And we have the best team we've ever had. Folks that, were let go right before COVID or at the beginning were folks that were on the verge of that happening to anyway. So I think businesses are operating a lot smarter. I think restaurants understand now there's a lot of areas that they were being wasteful or maybe they weren't being smart. So, what is really the core of your business? I think once you really identify that, that's what Corona made you do. And I think once you identify it, you're going to come out of this with probably less expenses and more efficiency and understanding your consumer better.
Right. That's great advice, Steak. And I just want to thank you so much for being with us here today on Invest Atlanta's Tuesday Talk. Thank you for all of the work you do here in Atlanta.
What are you doing for lunch? What's everybody doing for lunch? Because now, right?
Ordering takeout, supporting our local businesses, of course.
What part of town do you live in?
Oh, gosh. At Invest Atlanta, we're all working remotely right now. Most of our staff lives in the city. Unfortunately, I don't. I live in Gwinnett County.
All right. Well, I want to know what your best takeout carryout places are. You don't have to tell me now, but we always want to throw shout outs for any local. I love the local restaurants that are figuring it out. So I'm getting hungry. I got all these places in my head. I'm talking to you, but all I'm thinking about is my lunch.
I know. I see that picture of the hamburger behind you.
I got to live the shtick, right? You got to live the shtick.
Exactly.
All right.
So we're going to be posting, we'll share this broadcast live on our Invest Atlanta YouTube. It's already on our Facebook page. You'll find it there later as well. And as well as our Instagram and also on Atlanta Eats pages as well. So thank you so much, Steak, again, for all that you're doing here in the city. And if you want to find more information on Georgia Alive, please go to their new normal work safety resource page at georgiaalive.com. And also you can find Steak Shapiro, Atlanta Eats, and Steak. Where can you be found on your social media?
So you can find me under Steak, STEAK, Steak Shapiro. But we have a TV show 7 days a week, every morning at 9 o'clock, Saturday nights at 7, Sunday mornings at 10:30. And then all our social media. We got the biggest site in the city for food and dining at Atlanta Eats TV. And I know my mama told me I had a face made for radio, but it is what it is. You can see a lot of our great features, AtlantaEats.com. We have over 300 restaurants on our site that you get to tell stories about. So follow us. And this was a great pleasure. I've known about Invest Atlanta for years. There's a reason why all these companies want to come move to Atlanta, and you guys are a huge reason.
Thank you so much, Steak. You have a wonderful day. And thank you to everyone for joining us today.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.